Hey guys, the Super Review Show for another episode of Why You Should Listen To. This is the show where I break down artists on Spotify that their streaming numbers are lower than I think they personally normally would be. Well, this one kind of makes sense to me, truthfully, but this is the show where I break down Spotify streaming numbers, and the music is still that good. You have to check these guys out, or this artist out, whatever. I'm talking today about the Kinks. Now, for those of you who are saying, "Oh, I think I've heard of the Kinks. You really got me. All Day and All of the Night, Come Dancing, Lola. That band from the '60s into the '70s and even into the '80s, truthfully, who had a lot of success and kind of got forgotten about as time went on. They did disband in 1996, but they are returning soon. I believe, as far as I know, Ray Davies and Dave Davies, the two brothers who made the Kinks, basically amended their, they hated each other for a long time, truthfully. But now they're fine, and they are working. They officially got together back in 2019. Ray came out and said, look, we're going to reform the Kinks. We're going to start touring, and we might make a new album, too, on top of that. And the world's like, oh, my God, the Kinks are back. But we haven't heard any concrete plans since. The last thing I heard was in 2021. They said post-COVID, like it was last year, they said, hey, we're working on some new stuff. Ray and I are working in the studio, whatever. We're working on some new stuff, and we're going to tour at some point. That's the last thing I heard. But so when you go on Wikipedia and you look up the Kinks, they actually say, instead of saying were an English rock band, they say are an English rock band. I just check out stuff just on a whim sometimes. I just look at it. I love this band. So when you think of the 60s, when the British invasion first hit the U.S., you obviously think of the Beatles. You think of the Rolling Stones. You think of the Who. You think of Cream to some extent. You think of lesser ones like Jerry and the Pacemakers, the Dave Clark Five. You think of stuff like that. The Kinks were one of those bands that were, I would say, a good combination of the Who and the Rolling Stones. They were aggressive, but they were also lyrically pushed boundaries like the Stones. Like, the Stones had I Can't Get No Satisfaction. Their first number one hit in the U.S. and the fourth one in the U.K. But the Stones, let's not forget, people, the Rolling Stones, that song is about not getting it from a woman. If you know what I'm talking about, good for you. The Kinks, You Really Got Me. Think about it. Girl, you really got me now. You got me going. What it's about is, it's one of the best songs of all time. The Kinks, You Really Got Me is one of the best songs of all time. Go to any rock magazine, any song magazine, any music publishing, they're going to have You Really Got Me up there because the way it sounded, the way it was played, the way that it was written, it's one of the best songs of all time. It's widely regarded in the top 30 songs of all time, top 40 songs of all time. You Really Got Me by the Kinks. Given the fact that, like I said, the Stones did that, but they were a combination. Sound-wise, they sound like the Who of my generation. Talking about my generation, that sound of the guitar. But they were lyrically similar to the Rolling Stones in that aspect. I mean, that is true, but not to the fullest extent. I'm just giving you guys an example of what I'm talking about. Long story short, the Kinks are one of my favorite groups from that time period. I listen to them a lot on Spotify. I have several albums here I'm going to show you in about a second. But Ray Davies was a genius. He still is a genius. Before he got back together with Dave, his brother, they were touring he was touring as a solo artist like crazy. He was just doing whatever. He was, doing whatever he could to just tour around and be a touring musician, truthfully. But he is now back with Dave, and they're working on doing some new stuff together. Last I heard. Over there in the UK still, they're doing fine. They didn't get COVID. They're fine. But here we go. First album I want to touch on by the Kinks is their debut album. This is a UK pressing of their first record. I have an actual LP pressing of their very first record. Here's Ray. Here's Dave. I think that's Peter Quaife. And I think that's, what's his name? That's on the back. The Kinks are, no, I forget. Anyways, there's Ray and Dave. Two of the best writers ever, because they wrote all their songs. Ray Davies and Dave Davies. Mick Avery, I think. I'm not familiar with the rest of their names, but I know Ray and Dave pretty well. But the Kinks, this has a couple of covers on it, but really good songs overall. Beautiful Delilah, So Mystifying, Just Can't Go to Sleep, Long Tall Shorty, See, some of these you've never heard of. I Took My Baby Home, I'm Not a Lover, Not a Fighter, and one of the greatest songs of all time, You Really Got Me. It's right on the back there. I don't know if you can see that, but it's right on the back cover. On the end of side 1 is You Really Got Me. Side 2, Cadillac, Bald-Headed Woman, Revenge, Too Much Monkey Business, I've Been Driving on a Bald Mountain, Stop Your Sobbing, and Got Love If You Want It. The Kinks, this was their debut album in the night. It's a UK pressing. It's kind of rare. I got it at one of my local record shops. I said, is that the debut? And they said, yeah. How much is it? And I bought it for what it was worth. It's worth a lot more money than I thought it was, apparently. But this is their debut album. This is the UK pressing does not. The US pressing has All Day and All of the Night, but this one has You Really Got Me on it, which is really what I wanted to get. So, but anyways, the Kinks debut. Let's go over to their next album that I have of theirs. I don't have, and I've been meaning to get it for the longest time. The Village Green Preservation Society. The one I don't remember the name of the album, but it's the one with Holiday and Waikiki in it, or the one the other one with Waterloo Sunset. These are really good albums that are highly underappreciated and highly underrated. Just a quick fact: the Village Green Preservation Society album from 1967 came out the same day as the Beatles' White Album, so it tanked heavily. That album tanked in the U.S., across the world, and then the Kinks were kind of forgotten about until 1970, or 71, over 50 years ago now, with Lola. The Kinks, Lola and the Money, Lola versus Power Man and the Money Go Round, Part 1. This album, I got this on eBay. Yes, the corner's kind of ripped, whatever. But okay, I like original pressings. I prefer original pressings over new pressings, personally. Because there's something about that crackle and the way the album starts. I love that. I just love that sound. But side 1, the contenders. Strangers, Denmark Street, Get Back in Line, Lola, La 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 Lola. You know that one? Yep. Top of the Pops and the Money Go Round. Side 2, this time tomorrow, A Long Way from Home, Rats, 8 Man, I'm an 8 Man, I'm an 8 Man, Power Man, Got to Be Free. This album brought the Kinks back to the forefront because Lola was a huge hit for the Kinks. Lola was a humongo, super mega hit for the Kinks. I love that record. There was supposed to be a part 2 in the 70s because it's called Lola Part 1. Lola Part 1. Ray said on record they never made Part 2. Some diehard fans of the Kinks still want Part 2, but they just never have, unfortunately. I hope maybe their new album is going to be Part 2. Who knows? We'll see. Because it's a loose concept album, Ray said at one point. I'm going to leave a link, just on to sign up for Lola. I'm going to leave a link in the description of the video. It's an hour-long, audio-only interview, so not many people are going to listen to it. But if you want to check it out, it's an interview that Ray Davies talked about this album, and also the other album he talked about was I forget the name of it. Anyways, Ray Davies is talking in like 2010 to the BBC about Lola, and he talks about the album too. And Molesbury Hills, I think it's how you say it. Anyways, he's talking about that Lola and that other album in this one interview, and it's really good. I'm gonna leave a link for that in the description in this video, so you guys could check it out too. Anyways, Lola, great. The Kinks' low budget was kind of like their comeback in a sense. I forget where I got this. But this has like I Wish I Could Fly, like Superman, Attitude, Catch Me Now I'm Falling, Pressure, and National Health. Low budget, In a Space, little bit of emotion, A Gallon of Gas, Misery, and Moving Pictures. This was came out in what, 1980? I forgot. No, 79. This is kind of like so. Really quick backstory. Clive Davis, who if you're not familiar with him, who he is, there's a documentary on Netflix about who Clive Davis is. Check him out. He is a music business pioneer. He brought the Kinks back to the forefront in the late 70s. He said, hey, I'll make you guys superstars if you want. You just have to sign to my label. Sure. So they did. This album came out. The Superman song was a bit of a hit for them in the late 70s, into the 80s. Not my favorite Kinks album, but I do have another album of theirs right here. It's called The Kinks One for the Road. One for the Road, yeah. And this one is, I believe it's a live album. I'm not sure exactly what it is. It came out in 1980. There's Ray on the back, right there. Oh, it's a live recording from Providence, Rhode Island, in the Northeast here, Syracuse, New York. It's all around great. It's just a live album that I saw that I got one day. I was like, let me just get them. And Switzerland too. It's just a live album that has different songs on it, so that you can hear them, what they play and whatnot. It's a great live album, and I have it on vinyl. Another one I want to touch on here is the Kinks' State of Confusion. This came out in 1983. This one has the hit single on it, Come Dancing. State of Confusion, Definite Maybe, Labor of Love, Come Dancing, Property, Don't Forget to Dance, Young Conservatives, Heart of Gold, Clinches of the World, B-Movie, and Bernadette, all produced by Ray Davies. The Kinks kind of came back to the forefront in the early 80s as a live act to go see. At first they were like, nah, whatever, we're not going to go see the Kinks. Now you can go see them. Because they had a hit single on this album called Come Dancing. And the title track, State of Confusion, is actually really good too. I listened to a lot to in 2020 because it's the State of Confusion. But Come Dancing is a great song. It's a kind of a pop, organ-filled song. If you haven't heard Come Dancing, get on it. It's a great song. The last LP I have by the Kinks is called Give the People What They Want, which is it came out in the 81, so before the other one, excuse me. But it has songs like Around the Dial, Give the People What They Want, Killer's Eyes, Predictable, Added Up, Destroyer, Yo-Yo, Back to Front, Art Lover, A Little Bit of Abuse, and Better Things. All produced by the genius known as Ray Davies. So long story short, why should you listen to the Kinks? Why should you listen to one of the best bands Britain has ever produced? One of the best hard rock bands, one of the best pop rock bands, one of the best in general bands. Why should you listen to the Kinks? If you want to get to know riff rock the way we got to know it, like not necessarily like Satisfaction, like I said before, like the dun 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 dun, you know what I mean? Like not like that, or like or the Kinks. Even Metallica has gone on to say this. The Kinks were a band that was known for riffs. Ray Davies came up with do. Van Halen, You Really Got Me is a cover of the Kinks. So they were the pioneers of riffs. When you think of a hook in a song and a riff, it dates back to the Kinks. Ray Davies was the riff master, truthfully. So was Keith Richards of the Rolling Stones, don't get me wrong. But Ray Davies definitely amplified the power chord. He said, we're going to do You Really Got Me in, I think it was like G5. If you guys know guitar chords, it's the power chord. So a G5 or C5, whatever. And it changed the world. The way it sounded, it was aggressive. It was new at the time. It was incredible. It was a fantastic, one of the best songs of all time. Van Halen's covered it. Eddie loves the Kinks. Eddie Van Halen loved the Kinks to death. So, long story short, their streaming numbers are low, but that doesn't mean that you guys should not check out the Kinks. So that's going to do it for this video. Hit the bell, subscribe, whatever you have to do. But for all of your why you should listen to videos and many more, keep it locked on the Super Reviews with the J-Man. It's off to rock.